going to call to order hang on, get my page here. As of 7:02, I'll call to order the March 6th Marin LAFCo board meeting. So, April 6th, excuse me. You're right. So, called order as of 7:02. Roll call.
Commissioner Rodoni.
Present.
Commissioner Lucan.
Here.
Commissioner Murray.
Here.
Commissioner Caius.
Here.
Commissioner Moody.
Here. Commissioner So.
Oh, what are we doing for Bordeaux and Kohler? Are they technically here or absent?
They're Kohler's here.
Commissioner Kohler. Thank you. Commissioner Savell.
Present.
Commissioner Bordeaux is currently absent, but intends to be.
And then call the two alternates that aren't here. Molten Peters
Oh, Commissioner Moulton Peters is absent,
and Commissioner Burke.
and Commissioner Burke is also absent. We have a quorum.
Okay, so we have a quorum.
That's correct. And since Commissioner,
He was at the back, he found his
Okay.
janitor, he's now knows he's on his way.
okay, perfect. Thank you. So
I've
since
called it order, so we're going to keep moving. We'll just catch up.
yeah,
That's
so
important anyway.
since we are our public seat is currently empty, Commissioner Savell as the alternate will fill in that role.
Okay. Okay, agenda review. Does anybody want to make any changes to the agenda for tonight?
Mr. Chair, if we can move items 3 and 4 around, we have the applicant for item 4 in the room, and there's currently no one present, although I am expecting someone for item 3. So if we can switch those two items, that would be appreciated.
That'd be fine, me. Any other changes? Nope, okay.
Do you need a motion?
I don't think we need a motion for that, do we? No. We're going to cut out all these motions. Consent calendar items. There are 2 items on consent. One is the approval of the minutes for February 9th, and the other is the ratification of payments from February 1st to March 31st. So first off, is there any discussion from the commission?
I'll move the consent.
Okay. The movement for consent. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye. Don't we need to go to the public?
You do need to have public comment before you
Is there
can
any
vote.
public comment for the consent calendar for tonight?
We've received no cards for public comment.
I didn't think so. Okay. So now we'll take the official vote. All in favor of accepting consent for tonight?
Aye.
Aye. Good, thank you.
Just a reminder for folks in this room who aren't used to this, if you don't have your mic on, they won't get you on the tape.
Okay. That could be a good thing. Okay, next item, public hearing. So Jason, you wanted to move 4 up to the top?
Yeah, we moved item 4 as the first item of the public hearing. Item 4 is the annexation of 3606 Paradise Drive into Sanitary District Number 5. We do have the applicant present. Just as a brief heads up before we get to the applicant, this is basically they're remodeling their home, are looking to get off of a septic tank, put onto sewer. And this one is in the unincorporated area of Paradise Drive, which is, as those of you who've been around long enough know, one of my most favorite subject matters here at LAFCo of how do we deal with this area. They have agreed to sign a delayed annexation agreement where they will not oppose a future annexation should we ever get Tiburon willing to agree to do it. I've always had the philosophy that we should try and get these annexed, but the process that the last time we went through one of these, you may remember 3 or 4 years ago now, it took the applicant over a year to get through the pre-zoning process with Tiburon. They made it slow and painful, and I don't feel like it's appropriate for us to force that issue on them if Tiburon's really going to fight us on it. So we should at some point have a very high-level discussion about how we handle this, because Tiburon did not even bother to officially respond to this application, and I find that very inappropriate on their part that they completely ignored us. We knew about this application. They've been working on this for quite some time. And I asked them quite a while ago about it, and they said, "Oh, I don't think we're interested, but let me talk to staff." And then when this came back on our radar, several months ago, I asked them again, and they completely ignored that request. And when I sent them the official request this time, they didn't bother to respond to us. So it's clear that something needs to be done because Paradise Drive is not a very well-organized area, and there are ways to fix it, and this is part of that. So that is my report. The applicant is here if you have any questions for them. Otherwise, I would recommend approval of this application at this time.
Okay. First, I'll ask about comments from the commission. And as far as Tiburon not responding, let's talk about it offline. And remind me, I'll give them a call and find out what's going on there. Because you're right, that's not acceptable.
Shake them down.
Okay. Any other comments from the commission? Nope. Any comments from the public? Would the property owner want to make a statement?
You hit the button on the mic.
That's my comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Short and sweet, we like that.
Great.
Okay, then I'll bring it back to the commission. Do I hear a motion to approve this request?
I'll make the motion to approve the requested annexation of 3606 Paradise Drive and approve the attached resolution number 23-03 with conditions.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Do you want to take a vote, Jared?
If you want to do unanimous consent, you can do so.
So we are going to do a unanimous consent. That's okay, tonight, right?
Right, you'll do the vote, but you can all say aye. We're not going to go through a roll
Okay.
call.
Then, everybody vote, say aye.
Aye.
Todd, Rick?
I
They're
did.
not voting members, or
Rick?
Rick is.
I did.
Yep.
I thought it.
Okay,
Aye.
then
I already did.
we have unanimous vote, so motion's approved, you're approved. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
All right, the next item on our agenda is our favorite individual application, 255 Margaret, hold on. Is 255 Margarita Drive. In front of you today is the third iteration of this application. As a friendly reminder to the newer folks, we had this application come to us back in 2015 when it was an emergency out of service agreement because they had a failing septic tank and needed to be put onto a sewer system. And I do see that we have representatives from the sanitary district, so if you want to take a seat up at the front there, you can. They had that. They never followed through, never completed the process. It was deemed incomplete when I first got here. Once I sat down and was able to look at old applications, we had quite a few of them. This is the last one that predates me being around. And so after several years of trying to get them to apply, they finally reapplied. End of last year, we gave them conditions. They did not meet those conditions. And so that we approved it, but with conditions. And since that also got denied, since they or deemed terminated because they did not complete the conditions. On January 12th, the sanitary district was scheduled to have a disconnect hearing for this applicant for this property. Surprisingly enough, on January 11th, we got a new application with an application fee. So at the hearing, the sanitary district decided to delay the disconnect until April 28th. That would give them enough time to go through our process here today, because when they submitted, we couldn't get it on to our February meeting just because there's a waiting period before you can actually get it to the commission. So it didn't meet that criteria. So we have this application in front of us today. Some updates that have occurred earlier today, and there's going to be some confusion on this, and I'm going to apologize ahead of time to you on that. Actually, before I get to today's stuff, in front of you, I put together a letter that is from the sanitary district dated March 30th to the applicant, telling them here are the final things that still need to be completed before they would accept the thing in there. You'll see number 5 is annexation into LAFCo. We will hear from the applicant, or not from the applicant, but from the district about where they stand on these things. But earlier today, I received a notice from the representative for the applicant that they wish to delay tonight's hearing to the next meeting because they could not be here tonight. They are out of country and so could not attend. I sent them a nice note back saying, if you do this, you're going to be out of compliance with the April 28th district requirements, and therefore, I would highly recommend that you not do it. And if you're going to do it, you better figure out how to find a porta potty or some other way to have sewage system at your site, because you're going to get disconnected in April and we don't meet again until June. So you better figure things out. I got a very confusing message from the property owner after I sent that, saying, we're trying to comply. I don't understand why you're looking to disconnect us. I replied back to him saying, well, you're asking for a delay, and that delay is going to mean, I went through the whole process with them. Mala was on that email chain, so she can confirm that I gave them all the correct information. Have not heard back from them since then. I will personally say you should deny the request to delay. You should be making a decision tonight, because if we don't, then they will get disconnected from the sanitary district. We've been trying to avoid that, although if they, at the end of the day, can't figure out how to do their stuff correctly, then they will get disconnected. And the representative from the district is here who can answer any questions that you may have at this point.
Okay.
That's my general report. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Jason.
Chair, before we start, I actually need to recuse myself from this item, given the property owner and some of the new rules that went into effect by the FPPC at the start of this year. So I'm going to step out of the room for this meeting,
Okay.
or for this item.
Commissioner Lucan, do you need to disclose a little bit more detail in terms of, is it campaign related or?
It is campaign related. There's new rules that went into effect on January 1st, and this individual has made a recent contribution that is an in-kind, so it can't exactly be returned. So given that these are new rules, it's probably safer that I just recuse myself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Jason, back to your descriptive. So for tonight, we can deny the request to extend, but still consider the actual resolution and potentially approve or reject the resolution. Those are two separate items, right?
Correct.
Okay. So I'll just start off by saying, to keep it simple, I would support denying the extension. We've been dealing with this for a year and a half, 2 years, whatever. It's been a long time. And if they can't be here for a scheduled meeting, then we shouldn't be changing our schedule again because of that. So I personally would agree that we should deny the request to extend it. So, all in favor?
I don't think, I think what you should just ask what we think about that. I
Okay.
think it's correct. I think the commission has been dealing with this for more than 2 years. It's
Yeah.
more like 4 years. And we've had a lot of discussions on it. I was concerned about the conditions because I felt that they probably wouldn't get those done. And I do agree with the idea of denying their extension.
And just for the record, you don't actually have to take a vote or motion on on that particular request. You just have to vote on the item itself.
Well, but I previously had asked you if we had two different things to consider.
You do have two different things to consider, but you don't have to take a formal vote on the request to continue this item.
Oh, okay. Then I'll just say,
Dennis.
Dennis, you have a comment?
That was my question, whether we had to take action on the request to extend. And
Okay.
the answer
So
is
then,
no.
we're going to reject the request to extend it. So then the item,
Comment.
sorry. Yeah, Craig, sorry, I didn't see you.
So Doris Toya is here with Santa Fe Sanitation, District Engineer. Or Doris, are you now General Manager? I'm sorry. Yep. Congratulations. So I'd just like to hear from you, since you've been working directly with the applicant as well. And it looks like they've made some progress, but I guess in LAFCo's eyes, they haven't been meeting the terms of what we expect. So if you could
So if I can,
provide some
before you do that.
comment. Yep.
So the first item was to consider whether we would extend this for another meeting. We were rejecting that, okay? So now we're going into actually considering what the resolution itself, okay? So before we get to her comments or whatever, which we will do, I'll just ask the commission members, does anybody have any comments or discussion about the resolution itself and approval or rejection of that?
Fair enough.
Okay, I see no hands up, no comments. So now, Ms. Toy, if you have some comments, we'd love to hear what your comments are.
I just want to give you all an update. We actually went out and did an inspection today. So they have made quite a bit of progress. The bulk of the whole lateral structure has been pretty much installed per approved plan 7 years ago, that version. And they've actually removed the, unapproved portion that went across the neighbor's yard. They actually disconnected it already. So our inspectors have inspected that. So all they have to do left is to, backfill that trench that they just removed the pipe from. And then they also have to put in a backflow prevention device at their house, and that's about it. Everything else passed. So, yeah, it's great. And so they originally was going to schedule another inspection tomorrow, but unfortunately it's supposed to rain, so they're going to schedule it for next week. So hopefully, I mean, it sounds promising. It seems like they're making a lot of progress, so.
So based on that, my interpretation of your comments is that you believe they'll be able to meet the dates that they've set out here to meet.
Yes,
Okay, that's good. That's more progress than we've had for years.
I know.
I think Greg had a question before.
Yeah, okay.
That's it, just an update. Thank you, Doris.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay,
So-
any other comments from the public?
I have a question.
We're going to come back. You didn't raise your hand when you asked for questions from the commission.
Okay.
It's okay?
Can I ask a question
Sure.
now? All right. Thank you, Ms. Toy, for coming. I'm glad there's been progress moving forward. Is the district really committed to disconnecting on April 29th if they do not complete those last few things?
Yes, we are. We are
Excellent.
prepared.
Thank you for supporting and moving forward. I know this has been a challenging one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, no other commissioners, right? Okay, then I'll go back again. Any comments in the public?
We've received no public comment cards.
Okay, I see no comments from the public, so bring it back to the commission. Any other final comments or questions before we take a vote? Then do I hear a motion to, I think we should approve it. I mean, if we're making progress, it looks like they can make their dates. If the district is committed to this, I think we can approve the resolution.
So,
I'll move the approval of the resolution 23-02, the annexation of 255 Margarita Drive to Santa Fe Sanitary District.
I'll second that.
Okay, good, motion and a second. You want to take the vote?
You don't need, you can just raise hands.
Okay, so we're going to go all the way through,
Yep.
just do that. That's good. That works for me.
can I ask a question? So since this is being filmed, can we raise hands or do we just say aye? You know,
Whichever you want to do.
okay.
I mean, it's more traditional to say all those in favor, aye.
Yeah.
I'm used to that. Can we do it that way, Chair?
Well, how would you like it? You tell me.
Just ask all in favor, say aye.
Okay? All opposed? Nay.
Okay, so why don't you ask us all in favor?
Okay, I
Aye.
will. So that's going to be okay.
And then any opposed?
Okay. So all in favor of passing the resolution after the motion in the second, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? No opposed? Motion carries? Okay.
Perfect.
How was
Just
that?
one quick thing, say any abstentions.
How is that, other than the extensions?
Yeah. We've got it. Thank you.
I will eventually.
So moving on to item number 5, we have final approval for the Golden Gate Corridor MSR. Oh, by the way, thank you,
Appreciate it.
Doris, for showing up tonight.
Thank you, Doris.
And so on that, I will hand it over to Jaren, who will give you his final presentation on this particular matter.
Yeah, so before the commission this evening for your approval are the final draft of the Golden Gate Corridor MSR, the work plan from the MSR, and all of the resolutions for the spheres of influence, with all of them being a reaffirm, save for the city of Mill Valley, which is being amended. And just as, in addition to that, that amendment is agreed upon between us and staff. They are fine with this taking place also. Since the last meeting, there was about three extra weeks of public comment. In that time, no additional public comments were received, either from members of the public or any of the agencies. I would like to contribute, at least on the agency side of that, to be the fact that we work in this process collaboratively quite a bit. There's nothing that gets put in a public draft that is a surprise to any of these agencies, so I'd like to believe that by the time public draft comes out, they know what they're about to see, so that is minimizing some of the comments that we receive. As far as edits to the document is primarily just some language edits, as well as adding a couple of footnotes. The chair pointed out earlier this afternoon that there is a bit of a issue with the online draft that we are not seeing in our own files. So it's just a couple of the tables, some of the names in the tables are appearing differently than they are in our actual file in the website version. So we will make sure that we rectify that before actually putting the final draft up on the website, should it be approved this evening. So with that, I will give it to the commission for deliberation.
Thank you, Jaron. Okay, so back to the commission. Anyone have any comments or questions about the Golden Gate MSR? Barbara, any questions? Okay. No questions or comments?
Thank you.
Okay, then I'll open it up to the public. Any public comments about the Golden Gate MSR? Yes, Cliff?
Hi, I'm Clifford Waldeck from Mill Valley, and if everybody else had gotten their comments in, the 6 other jurisdictions, is Mill Valley dragging their feet at all, or, I mean, I'm just kind of sticking up for the home team to see if I need to go kick them or anything.
No, staff from Mill Valley was incredibly responsive and a pleasure to work with.
Okay, good, thanks.
Good question. Thanks, Cliff. Any other comments from the public? Okay, let me bring it back to the commission. Any other thoughts or comments? Then do I hear a motion to approve the, sorry, Todd?
I just noticed it probably could have been on my computer thing, but some of the graphics were a little bit fuzzy. And is that going to be updated on the final?
Yeah, and I think that again is a transition issue that we're trying to just make sure we have resolution.
Okay, good, thank you. That's all.
I will also add, sometimes we take things off of other people's websites, off of theirs, and so the version that we get is not all that clear, so it's as best as we get sometimes is what you see in there.
And that's part of what I discussed with Jaron earlier this afternoon, same kind of thing. So, and so, Rick, did you have a question?
I do not.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, sure.
I just have a question for you, Mala, on the staff recommendation. Can we approve all the attached resolutions without naming them separately, or can we just go with the way the staff recommendation?
Yeah, someone could make a motion if they wanted to approve all of the staff recommendations for item 5 as one motion, if that was the pleasure.
Okay. So I'll, go ahead, well, why don't you read?
So what we're talking about here, kind of at the back, is rather than go through all these resolutions, my proposal is that we do one motion to approve all the resolutions since they're all related.
Omnibus?
If you want to call it omnibus,
Mr.
sure.
Chair, if you can make it staff's recommendation for item 5, because it's more than just the resolutions you're approving tonight.
I'll go ahead, and if you have it in front of you.
I do, yeah.
Good.
So I'll move that we approve all the attached resolutions on the Golden Gate Corridor Region MSR, SOI approvals, and work plan with any amendments as desired by the commission. Was that good, Jay?
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
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 All against? All abstaining? No, so motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Jaron, I know there's a lot of work involved in that. Good job, thanks, but don't let it go to your head. Okay, next item is item number 6, adoption of the proposed operating draft budget for the fiscal year 23-24.
Sure. This was done by the Budget Committee, so I always like to yield to the chair of the Budget Committee if they want to make any comments before I give a presentation.
Just a brief comment, thanking Todd and Steve for sharing the committee with me, and that we did accept the recommendations of the executive director to move forward with the budget as proposed, with acknowledging there would be some final year-end changes when those numbers are determined. So Jason, I'll turn it back to you.
Sure. So what you have in front of you is general status quo budget. We're not looking to do any major changes or major shifts other than one section. As you're all aware, we are going to be moving out of the Marin map system into a new system that you approved. So this budget has some individual line items that reflect the changing of where money is being spent and how it's being spent to better reflect that. Outside of that change, there's one big question that we have that staff has for the commission tonight under salary. The county is giving a 3% COLA increase, plus in addition, you can get a step or a merit-based increase as well. But what we're requesting last year, the commission went a little bit higher than the county based on inflation. Inflation, while not as bad as last year, is still high, is still pretty high. So staff would like to make the request, and the budget committee was fine with us making this request tonight. If the commission's willing to go a little bit higher than the 3%, what staff is recommending is a 3.5% increase, a 0.5% more, if you're willing to do that. So that's the one big question in front of you. Other than that, we once again are keeping our agency contribution below the 2019-2020 request, which has been my long-term goal of how long can we stay under that. This is probably the last year that we will be able to stay under that number, unless we happen to get a large number of applications next year. It's just not likely that we will be able to do that. So this is probably the last year we get to stay under that number. But I am very happy that I'm able to say that. Even with that, you're looking at a 6.8% increase right now. I personally project that depending on what goes on with salaries, after you negotiate my agreement after this meeting, and I have a discussion with Jaron about what he will be getting, that you will likely see a slightly lower amount. Later on in the agenda, there's an item about our office lease. The amount in the budget right now is for the higher of the two amounts. I'm recommending that you take the better offer, which is a longer-term lease, which will get us a better price for next year. So that will also be another place where you'll see a small decrease. At the end of the day, I wouldn't be shocked for somewhere between 5.5% increase for agency contribution at the end of the day, which I think, considering we have gone below what we were before COVID started, and we have stayed below that number, I don't think that we have that is a hard ask to have of all of our member agencies. And with that, I will yield back to the commission for any questions or comments.
Dennis, is all of that consistent with what was discussed in the budget meeting?
Yes, that's all consistent with the budget meeting.
Okay, good. Thank you. So, questions for comments from the commission? Barbara?
Yeah, I just was wondering, I forgot what we did last year when we increased it beyond the COLA. Did we do?
We did 3.5 last year as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
And last year, I think the county did a 2.5% increase, but then there was a bonus on top of that. So we never did the bonus. We just did an increase
I think
outright.
that was probably federal money.
No, the county did 3.5 last year.
Oh, did they?
Or
Okay.
the year before you're thinking of.
Oh, my apologies.
So I guess maybe I'm being ultra generous, but we only have 2 staff, maybe a new staff person soon. Would we want to consider 4% instead of 3.5%?
Staff would be more than happy to have that be the answer.
I
Well-
think that's actually part of the discussion, though, about the salary, which we'd take care of later, right?
Well,
This is about
This is
staff.
just budget.
my salary, you negotiate with me directly.
Separate.
Jaron's salary does not get negotiated with you. It's more of a, what is your COLA, and then does he get a step? And we follow the same process the county does with step increases. So whatever your COLA amount is locked in for Jaron. For me, there is more of a discussion.
But for now, we're talking about what the budget line is
Yes.
for those items. And
Correct.
so what, this discussion now with the 4% versus 3%, are you suggesting Barbara, are you suggesting that will change a budget line item?
Well, yeah, no.
I always put in a little bit extra in the salary line item to give you room. So there
Okay.
wouldn't necessarily be a change, but what would be good to know tonight, and what I need to know tonight, is what is your COLA increase? Because when I come back at your June meeting, I will have that perfectly factored into the salaries at that point.
Well, I would propose that we consider 4%
Okay.
instead of 3.5%.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, let's open it to the public. Any public comment on this item? Okay, bring it back to the chair. So again, just for clarity, when we have closed session to discuss your salary, is that a good time? I guess I'll ask Mala, because you'll be in that session. Is that a good time to talk about the 4 versus 3.5, or do we need to settle that now?
It's, the closed session is only for the executive officer, so he is treated separately. So for this 4 or 3.5% is for the rest of staff, which is currently just one additional staff. It wouldn't necessarily apply to the executive officer unless you separately negotiated that as part of his employment agreement.
So what I'm hearing from that is that if we were thinking we want to have the flexibility on the salaries, that we should then amend the budget now, or at least make the statement now about what the COLA is going to be, 3.5 or 4.
Correct.
Fair statement? Okay. So with that in mind, does anybody want to make a motion that will
I have a
accept the
question,
budget
Lou.
with the change to 4% being considered instead of 3.5 for COLA?
I have a question.
Sure, sorry.
So what kind of rose up for me, and I'm new here, so I'm still learning, but our staff is unrepresented, correct?
That is correct.
So, in terms of steps, what is the step scale for, is it a 5-step, is it a 10-step?
Yeah, so what we have done is we used to be in the county's HR system. So we just copied exactly what the county did. And we've continued to take that as a general approach. So I think the county's a 5-step system, if I'm not mistaken.
But,
so we continue to use that as a basic model.
Can I ask about that again? So I work for a county, and
Yeah.
in our county, different classifications have different levels of steps. Some will be 5, some will be 10, some will be 15, depending on what area. So when you say we go with the county, what does that mean?
The county has a 5-step system, I think, for all of its employees. I don't think they separate
Is that
out.
true, Dennis? Okay.
Yeah. So and just so you're aware, we used to have job classifications within the county. We technically don't have that anymore. What I did do at one point in time is the increase between steps is not exactly the same between classifications. What I did do is took an average of a bunch of different classifications that we have used in the past and said, what is the average step difference to be blunt, to make my life a little bit simpler and easier. And it's hard to find the county's step system anywhere other than going to their staff. Sometimes I can get quick answers, sometimes I don't. And so it was more of a matter of, if I just averaged them out, I figured it all worked out in the end between your steps. So I use an average of what the county steps are as for our steps as a general rule.
And forgive me for not knowing this, but do we post our classifications and scales on the website?
We do have on the website our classifications, and that will get updated after my contract negotiation, because that needs to be updated once a year.
Awesome, thank you, Jason.
That's all my questions, Lou.
Okay, good. Thanks, Steve. Good questions. Any other questions or comments? Then again, I'll bring it back. Does anybody want to make a motion to accept the budget with the understanding that the COLA will be 4% instead of 3.5%?
I'll move that.
Motion?
I would second.
Second from Steve.
Just a point of clarity for the record, the recommendation was 3%, and that was from the Budget Committee, and what Barbara's requesting is 4, just so the record's clear.
Okay. So it's 3 going up to 4. Okay, good. That's a good clarification. Good. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
All opposed? No opposed? Any abstentions? No abstentions. So motion passes.
Thank you.
With that change, that the assumption for COLA will be 4%.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so now we got item number 7, interview of LAFCo regular and alternate public member seats and possible appointments.
So if all the folks who are in here left in the audience can take the seat behind their name tag, and Commissioner Sabell, if you could move over while I do a brief introduction to this.
Yeah.
When we started this process, you can,
I have an announcement to make.
yes.
I'll be withdrawing my application at this time. I'm prepared to report out and sum up under announcements in the end. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay?
So in that case then, we had 8 applicants when we started this process. Earlier today, we heard from one of them who said he wished to pull out completely. We just heard from Commissioner Seville that he's also pulling out, so we're down to 6 applicants, and 2 of them, unfortunately, this morning told me they could not be here. One of them was Larry Chu. He woke up this morning not feeling well and did not want to come and infect anyone else in the room. So he is not here. He can still be considered for the seat. You also have Vita Flores. emailed me late this morning. She had to go out of town for a family emergency, thought she could be back. Unfortunately, come this early this morning, she realized that it was not going to be possible for her to make it all the way back here. So she is also not here, but would also still like to be considered for that seat. So in front of you, you now have 6 applicants. 4 of them are here today. The process is always, you can ask any number of questions. You as a commission need to decide what, excuse me, what you're looking to do, how many questions you want to ask. But whatever questions you ask have to be asked to all candidates present. Those that are not present obviously can't answer those questions, but those that are will be given the same opportunity. What I would just recommend is start with one candidate, and as you rotate through the questions, we just rotate who's the first one to get started down the row until you get all your questions asked. And on that, I'll yield back to the commission to have your discussion about how you want to see this process run tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Jason, so we have an email here from Brad Sharp, and then, so I want to ask about Brad Sharp as candidate. I don't see.
As the email says, and as I mentioned at the beginning, Brad is the one who pulled out this morning, and that's what that email tells you.
And Edward Schwartz?
Yeah, the other 4 are there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Very good, thanks.
Okay, so again, I'm going to try to streamline things and make this as positive as can be. In the board packet, there were 9 potential questions that were listed. What I'd like to suggest to the commission is that we pick no more than 3 of those questions, and we decide which those 3 questions would be by number, preferably. And we then have each of those questions proposed or posed to the 4 people who are here. So.
That's a good idea, but we do have 2 people that are not here, and I know one of those, Larry Chu, Steve Berto, and I know him and are willing to speak about him, but he won't be able to answer questions.
At the end of the interviews, I'll open it up and you can make comments about anybody else who isn't here.
Okay.
That fair? Okay. So with that in mind, again, of the 9 questions, I'll say we should ask question number 1. I'll say we should ask question number 3. And does anyone else have any of those questions that they want to have asked?
I think number 4, I would propose instead of number 3 that we'd have number 4 and number 5.
Yeah, I was going to say number 5.
4 and 5.
5's kind of pertinent.
Yeah, I think, so I would agree with you on number 1, but I would say 4 and 5.
Well, I want to ask number 3, so we're going to ask 4 questions then. 1, 3, 4, and 5.
Okay.
If it pleases the chair.
Yeah, right. Okay, so, and, I'm sorry?
I'll second that, 1, 3, 4, and 5.
1, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, good. So, Barbara, would you like to ask the questions, or would you like for me to ask the questions?
I'll be happy to do it.
Okay, good.
Because I know
Thank you.
you're in more of a rush than I am. So,
I'm not trying to rush, I'm trying to be efficient.
efficiency is key, and I come from Fairfax where we believe taking our time. So let me just ask one question. So as I ask the first question, each person would answer, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Each person will get a chance to answer the question. Do you want to set some sort of time limit on them, or do you just want to give them?
Yeah, why don't we do this? Let's do 2-minute 2-minute response for each one. And I will say this, I'll start the first question and then we'll go in.
Do you want me
Nancy?
to time?
Yeah.
I'm going to actually put a countdown timer on the screen for you.
Okay.
Give me just a second.
So we'll start with Nancy and go through, then the next question we'll start with Edward and go through. So everybody won't have, Nancy won't have to be first on
Since
each
there's 4
one.
questions, that works out really well. That
It
everybody
works-
can be the first responder.
Works out perfectly.
Perfectly.
Okay, the first question, welcome Nancy, thank you for joining us. Please tell the commission something about yourself and the reasons why you have applied for the LAFCo regular public member position.
Yes, thank you for having me. I did provide my background, so you should have some information about what I've been doing for the last many years of my life. But I have been practicing law for approximately 45 years in Louisiana and California. And I have been involved in local government, as you can see, primarily with the schools. I have been on the oversight committee of many of the schools' progress in building, including now I'm again on the College of Marin board, where we've spent now over, $500,000, $600,000, and a lot with the Tamalpais Union High School. And we did a lot of land use planning issues there, particularly with the Tamalpais Union High School TAM in Mill Valley, where we had a lot of different issues. I also served for 8 years on the Marin General Hospital Board, now Marin Health, and I wrote legislation that was passed and that basically stopped the takeover of all of these hospital districts in the state of California by private interests. I'm very familiar with statutes. I'm familiar with the Brown Act, certainly, and with CEQA. And I've not only written them, but I read them every day, and that is part of my practice. I follow the law, I know the details, and I am capable of deciphering very complex language regarding statutory application to the issues that the LAFCo board is facing. I believe one of the main reasons that I decided to seek this position is because I see changes that are occurring, that are going to be happening with all of the development that are taking place in Marin County and the rest of the state, that I think is going to be very challenging, and I'm interested in the challenge.
Thank you, Nancy. Why don't we do this? Let Steve Berto do the timer, because apparently there's a little mix-up going on over there.
No, I got it. I got it figured out.
He's got it.
Okay, well, he didn't have
He's
it.
got it.
Okay.
It's fine now.
Okay.
She was under her 2 minutes.
So, welcome, Edward. I'll just read the question again, just to give you a second. Please tell the commission something about yourself and the reasons why you have applied for the LAFCo regular public member position.
Okay, you can probably tell by this briefity of my application. I could have made a lot of copies of resolution proclamations, and I got a whole wall full of those things that I've accumulated over the years. I'm very, very impressed with LAFCo. I've watched a couple of meetings on Zoom. And to me, it's an important organization. And I've got a lot of background with living in Marin County for many, many years with the municipalities, the cities, and the infrastructures. I don't want to be long on this, but I think I could do a good job with the knowledge that I have of Marin County. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Edward. And Roger, welcome. I'll repeat the question again. Please tell the commission something about yourself and the reasons why you've applied for the LAFCo regular public member position.
Thank you. You have my background and my resume, as it were, in front of you, so I won't repeat that. I'll try and fill in some of the gaps. As I mentioned, I'm a fourth-generation Marinite. My great-grandfather had a butcher store in San Rafael. My grandfather and his brothers were hay dealers. My father was a dairyman here in Marin. I was raised out on a ranch in Fairfax when there were ranches in Fairfax. So I have a long history here. And the fourth generation actually having a business in San Rafael and living in San Rafael. I also have a deep background in planning issues. As public service has always been very important to me, and I've tried to pick things where I can have an impact and where my particular expertise is useful. I've been a real estate broker, a real estate developer. I've done real estate leasing, all of it commercial real estate, none of it residential. But it has afforded me the opportunity to meet lots of people, learn about lots of businesses, and find out what happens. At the same time, I volunteered for many planning efforts, mostly in San Rafael, starting with downtown San Rafael back in the 90s, reaching up through 2 general plans. I've been on the steering committee for 2 general plans. I've worked on the North San Rafael vision. It's a long and deep background. So it's given me an appreciation for the other side. I've been, an applicant. And I've also been on the other side, writing the policies, writing the goals, and it's a little bit of a nerdy thing, frankly, but I I've enjoyed it. It's been a great balance, and I appreciate the opportunities I've had.
Well, thank you, Roger. And Clifford, I can repeat the question, or are you ready to roll? Thank you.
My name's Clifford Waldeck, and I grew up in Mill Valley and attended Mill Valley schools and Tam High, and now I'm a substitute teacher in the Mill Valley schools and at Marin Catholic and at Marin Horizon School and everywhere except Tam High because my daughter's at Tam High and says, Dad, I don't want you here. And then she told me just a couple of days ago, she's a senior now, you cannot sub there till 2026 when everybody I had gone to school with is not there. I haven't held public office for over 15 years now, and but I've always stayed involved, and I'm always, I like to help people out, kind of hit their ball across the goal line, whether they're running for office or have an initiative. Roger and I are both working on getting the train into downtown Mill Valley again. So I'm here because I've been familiar with LAFCo for a long time. I just love being the public member. I kind of take the view of a uninformed person. So I feel that I have the skill set to kind of know what the details are, but also being kind of the wide-eyed wonder of the people that have to face LAFCO. And perhaps as the public member, help them along the way.
Thank you, Clifford. Okay, so now we're going to Edward first for question 3. What experience have you had in land use planning?
Well, City of Novato, City of Novato had a planning academy in 2018. It was a 4-month academy, and it was all volunteer, but we addressed all the major concerns in the planning element as far as traffic, housing, infrastructures. It just went on and on. It was a very good, very productive planning academy. And also, I worked in a long-range facilities planning facility for the Novato School District. A lot was involved with excess property sales, but also long-range facilities of what schools to retain and which ones to close. I don't know if it's relevant or not, but I did serve 2 sessions on the Marin County Civil Grand Jury and also taught for 5 years the incoming grand jurist. And you'll learn a lot about civic. It's a measure on civic goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Roger, what experience have you had in land use planning? I think you mentioned that a little bit.
Yeah, I think you can see from the list of committees and commissions I've been on, it's a long list. And I've spent lots of time writing and reading and opining on change and managing change in our communities. I've also, on a personal basis, developed from properties from the ground up, so I've done it on a personal basis. I've worked with clients on their goals, all of which have been either in Marin or Sonoma County. So I understand the process here, I understand the public considerations, I understand the limitations, and I also understand the diversity of ways to get things done, which has been very useful. I think it's been, I think my input in those you have a couple letters of recommendation for. My input has been useful because it's a vantage point that isn't always well understood. That doesn't mean I'm pro-development necessarily. It means that there is a place for land development in land use planning. And it's good to have that vantage point as part of commissions and committees like these.
Thank you very much, Roger. Clifford, what experience have you had in land use planning?
I served on the Mill Valley City Council for 8 years, and the Bay Conservation Development Commission for 8 years, and the Regional Water Board for eight years. And I kind of knew, even after being on all those boards, I had a lot more to learn. And I've been quite involved with the Bay Area Council in their land use committee, their water committee, and their housing committee, and they kind of have me as the go-to person on Marin County issues. And I'm kind of a frequent flyer at whenever there's big like land use charrettes going on at the Mill Valley Community Center, whether it be for our One Hamilton project or the big housing development that's down the street there. Again, I'm more of a student of the game than an expert in the game, and there's so much to learn here. I just can't wait to get my arms around it.
Thank you, Clifford. So Nancy, why don't you tell us about your experience in land use planning?
Well, I've handled a lot of litigation matters involving land use planning, whether it's boundary lines, property disputes, nuisance issues, and have handled applications for various clients who are developers or real estate brokers. And in addition to that, we did put together, when I was on the hospital board, we were attempting to buy and did get Governor Schwarzenegger to agree to sell us for $1 that property that's across from San Quentin that is now being developed into all of those apartments. We had a plan for a hospital there, and we had a group that was working, putting together actually plans for how to get water, sewer, et cetera, to that location. So I spent a lot of time with that. In addition, with Marin General Hospital, we were purchasing some properties at the time that I was on the board. And in addition to that, I have my childhood home, my original childhood home, in a little tiny town called Hurleyville, New York. And I am on the advisor for a group there because they are putting in a development that will be the size of 3 times the size of this little town. And so for the last 5 years, I have been very much involved in how to deal with the runoff and the changes that will occur by putting in sewer, taking the water, there's no more water, they're taking it out of the water table, sinking it down, people losing their ability to turn on their faucets without air coming out or dirt coming out just from the wells that they're drilling. So I'm very, very well aware of and do participate every month in the different towns, going to their Zoom meetings to hear about what's going on. So I'm very well aware of the intricacies of development and how water and runoff and fire, et cetera, and all of those districts come to play in kinds of developments that LAFCO is looking at.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to start with Roger on question 4. What experience have you had with the delivery of local government services?
Well, I actually was a elected official, technically, on the Sleepy Hollow Fire Protection District Board, and I shepherded an application to LAFCO that was successful, I'm pleased to say, but and it was kind of typical of the things you saw earlier this evening. We had a couple houses at the end of Fawn Drive that were never brought into our district, and we wanted to change that. So I've done that, but frankly, that isn't, the bulk of it has been in the form of these commissions and advisory committees in trying to develop. Often they're, as a citizen, you're often involved in background issues. For example, parking, looking at parking studies for downtown San Rafael, trying to ascertain whether they're going in the right direction and getting outside advice beyond the consultants involved. It's been things like that, and those things then go from those citizen committees to councils. But it's made me aware of all the things that are involved in that arena. You know, I will say you as electeds it's a complicated life. There are a lot of issues that you have to weigh before you, it's not, what seems obvious from the outside isn't. And that's been probably the most important issue I think or the most important thing I've learned in my public service.
Well, thank you, Roger. And Clifford, what experience have you had with delivery of local government services?
I am most proud of my experience as an elected appointed official in my ability to work as a team, because it's like having body odor in an elevator. It just takes one person to stink it up for everybody. And so while I was on this city council, we were involved in the expansion of our library, the building of the Mill Valley Community Center. We started the expansion of Miller Avenue. And the other thing is, it's like people seek my advice too. And that's always nice to see, like people from the school board or this city council. And I had a lot of experience in San Francisco. I served as the president of the San Francisco Small Business Network for 3 years and got myself involved in many things, especially for the business community in San Francisco. And I just love working in a team environment, making things happen. And I have to proudly also add that I'm married to the North Coast manager of the California Coastal Conservancy. So I am like my wife's husband at all these great events that she goes to. And she's now the interim executive director of the Great Redwood Trail. So I kind of take credit for some of her stuff by osmosis, by just being her supportive husband.
Thank you, Clifford. And Nancy, can you let us know what experience you've had in the delivery of local government services?
Well, the service on the hospital board, that was at the time that the hospital, the first wing was being built, now not this one, that's just more recently completed. And so for 8 years, that was a very difficult and turbulent time because the hospital had been taken over by another nonprofit entity, and we had a lot to deal with at that time in terms of transitioning and issues that were raised. And I was, as I had indicated, very instrumental in making changes on the state level in order to be sure that Marin General Hospital was retained as a local district hospital and now associated with UCSF. That required a tremendous amount of my time and effort. I also put a lot of time and effort into the school bonds and how they were being administered. I was on multiple oversight committees, and at that time, in the very beginning, they were having all of these problems with schools so that the money was disappearing and nothing was being built. They actually had no building when people went to see what was there. So we started a process of actually going to the sites, hard hats and everything, to make sure that particularly at TAM High School, which was costing a great deal of money, that we wound up going there and seeing things. I was on top of many of the issues that ultimately were remedied because we had a close oversight. So when an entire gym floor wasn't done and when all of these expenditures were being made, we, and in large part, I think I can take credit for it, I think that Mr. Levinson will give me that credit, was watching the budgets, going over all the details. The same with the hospital. A lot of people sometimes don't have time to do that. I was always meticulous in doing all of that for all of the schools and all of the budgets that I was reviewing.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, so Edward, what's your experience with delivery of local government services?
I was on the Novato Fire District Ambulance Service, established that service years ago. I was on the committee for that. And then when it was active, Marin County Major Crimes Task Force, I was on the oversight committee for that. It went away from budget problems. And also, I'm currently in a disaster council for Marin County.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now, Clifford, you're on for number 5. What is your understanding of LAFCO's role in local government?
Well, I want LAFCo to continue to be one of the most important legislative bodies that nobody's ever heard of. Because by the time things should get in front of us here, it should be kind of figured out by staff and perhaps the participation of the board members and the parties involved, that by the time it comes here, it's a good, clean application coming through. And I'm excited about the stuff that could come through, whether it's, city and corporations or district incorporations or disillusionments, because you can have cocktail party talk about it makes sense to merge all the sewage districts in Hill Valley or, the water districts. And I think consolidation is coming down the pike, but it's going to become the fine work of LAFCo that it's going to get across the finish line. I do not consider, even though we are a regulatory legislative body, we're all about getting to the point of what's best, in the public interest. And I look with great curiosity, things like if unincorporated areas want to become incorporated, and, things are always changing and state laws are morphing by the way we look at things here. And LAFCO is going to be the center of the action.
Well, thank you, Clifford. And Nancy, can you speak to your understanding of LAFCO's role in local government?
My understanding is it has a planning and a regulatory role. And in the regulatory role, the people that are coming here and applying to LAFCO are seeking some changes that will affect maybe not only just businesses and big developers, but individual lives. I mean, whether or not it's somebody that's seeking to change their own individual property line in order to be able to be encompassed in one town or another, or now this was on the schools level, not on a LAFCO level. We saw how impactful it was with the issue in Corte Madera when the school was like, there was 30 houses and people were seeking petitions and everybody wanted to change the lines, and then the petition was taken back. That has real effect on people, and people don't really understand it until they recognize that this is something that they have to do and then have to go through the process. I myself almost went through the LAFCO process, but decided not to, because I have a house that's in the town of Ross, and it's also in the town of San Anselmo. And so I could have either just tried to draw a line around that and have a different boundary, but I just figured I'll stay in San Anselmo for what San Anselmo has to offer, and I'll stay in Ross for what Ross has to offer. And so now I have an ADU in San Anselmo, and I've got a house in Ross. And nobody knows where I live. So it's, but having learned about that, and having even found out about LAFCO when I went to see what I could do, I was amazed at the impact that it really has in terms of sphere of influence. And even in this tiny town that I came from in New York, I see the difference between what happens if you were in the town of Thompson and you're next to the town of Fallsburg, and what can happen to you if things are not coordinated and there isn't some really concise conclusions about it. Here you got one county, but when you've got one county and a different county, it's even more complicated, the impact that you can have on someone else. So I know what LAFCO does, and I think I can do a good job of reading the CEQA, the Brown Act, and the Cortez Act, and put it together.
Okay, thank you. And Edward, can you talk about your understanding of LAFCO's role in local government?
Like I say, I'm new. I did review a couple of the Zoom meetings here, so I kind of got an idea what LAFCO does. But I looked up the generic definition of what it is, and it's review and evaluation of proposals for improvement with different areas. But to me, I'm new and I want to learn, and to me, I have the ability to learn from others, attend the meetings, participate in, not be domineering, not be dictatorial, and take advice from staff and also from senior members. Thank you.
Thank you. And Roger, last question. What experience have you had with the delivery of, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong question. What is your understanding of LAFCo's role in local government? Apologize.
No, not a problem. I'll simplify it for what it means for me. I see LAFCO as an agency that's is looking out for the public good, but it's really here to help people get things done without hurting other people in the process. I think that takes some common sense, some good judgment, and a good understanding of what the rules are and what the policies are and why they're in place.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. So bringing it back, Chair, did we want to talk about if we know about the others?
Yeah, I was going to say, so there are two people who aren't here tonight. And to give them some idea, or give us some idea of their strengths and weaknesses, if any of the commission members have anything to offer about Larry Chu, who's absent, or Vida Flores, then we can take a minute and try to keep your observations as objective as possible, since we can't.
That's what I was going to suggest is we have the process here for the candidates that's shown up. I don't understand why we wouldn't just offer that up as part of our deliberation. It seems like we're having a board member represent the people that are not here. I'd be more comfortable just deliberating, and if people want to make comments about any particular candidate, they can.
Well, I have spoken to staff about this beforehand, and there was that we could present some objective things. Now, probably everyone's read the packet, but I would suggest that I barely know Vida Flores, but I think some of us know Larry Chu and can speak to just a little bit on his background.
I would be in favor of that, so you take a minute.
Yeah, so Larry served on the Larkspur Council for, I think it was 17 years, and served as mayor a few times. Also, he was very important in the movement of San Anselmo to what became Central Marin Police. He also was involved in the consolidation of Larkspur and Corte Madera Fire to be Central Marin Fire. He also sits on a number of committees, et cetera, but we're in the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority boardroom, and he sits on the Citizens Oversight Committee, which is responsible. Dennis is the president of the board, and I also sit on that board. And he has been the chair of the Citizens Oversight Committee, which deals with looking at how we're spending the money, et cetera. And he has a background of working for the Federal Reserve Board. So that's just a thumbnail sketch for folks who don't know Larry. And unfortunately, he's sick. And he was nice enough not to want to expose us.
Barbara, thank you for that. Anyone else have any comments about Larry Chu?
Just, I know Larry in terms of Scout organization, and very deep there, serving Marin youth and making sure our neighborhoods are strong and our next generations are here in public service. So Larry, his own service, but also looking to encourage others to serve as well. So I know him from that, and Barbara, certainly what you brought forward in his long-term service at Larkspur and some of the things we're dealing with in LAFCo, that would be extremely relevant. Thank you.
Hey, Craig. Any other comments about Larry Chu?
I wanted to go on to something else.
Okay. So Larry, we covered Larry. Any comments about Vida Flores? Dennis?
Yeah. I would just make the comment that Vida Flores is a talented young lady who has done a lot in Marin, especially for the low-income and underprivileged people and residents, and she certainly would fit this board, this commission. But I want to say that my preference is, and this is highly unusual, that we would consider someone that's not present for me and the practices that I've been involved in, So I won't consider anyone that's not here tonight. It's unfortunate that both Vida and Mr. Chu can't make it, but I think that tonight we should consider who's here, and if we don't want to pick someone from who's here, then we should open up the application period again and try again. But I feel very uncomfortable with picking someone who didn't have the opportunity to answer the questions and didn't appear in person for whatever the reason. They both have very valid reasons, but my preference would be going forward, even though I know Vida and I know Larry Chu, and they both be very good candidates and applicants, but I wouldn't feel comfortable picking either one of them unless they were present to answer the questions. So that's my preference, and I'll turn it over.
Eric?
I would just quickly add that I know both Vida and Larry. I've worked with both of them in a variety of capacities. I could certainly speak to their character. I think either of them would be wonderful additions to this. I think just in general, it's great to see so much interest in LAFCo, which is pretty amazing because a lot of us appoint to other boards and commissions, and sometimes it's hard to even get applicants. But I do echo my colleagues' comments about, I do think there is something to be said about those that are here tonight for the meeting and answering the questions. So I would echo those thoughts.
Greg?
Can I add something?
I just wanted to say what Dennis mentioned has kind of been the protocol, I know, when we were appointing our chair and vice chair. Dennis apparently was interested. We didn't know that, and Damon Connolly, who was serving as supervisor rep, kind of indicated after the fact of that, and Dennis was not here, and that was my exact feeling as well. If you're here at that meeting when we need to make a choice that really stands out, and I agree with that.
Okay.
So I would say, if the commission, last time we discussed whether or not we would meet in person or do hybrids, we decided to do in person only. If we had agreed to a hybrid situation, I'm assuming both Vida and Larry could have participated. And it's not for the idea of going on a vacation. So if there is a thought with this commission, I think both are very good candidates. I would suggest that we move this to the June meeting to, if you feel very uncomfortable with it. So we do have an opportunity to interview them in person. And I wouldn't, if we were going to do that, I wouldn't ask that everyone come back. I don't think that's fair. So that would be my suggestion.
Okay. Steve?
Yeah, and I'm just clarifying, we're in deliberation here, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you. So first, I want to thank Rick for his service. While much of this work is behind the scenes and out of the limelight, it is nonetheless important work. And I carry a great amount of respect and appreciation for anybody who gives them themselves in a role of public service. So thank you. As for the candidates we're considering tonight, we have an absolute wealth of riches in front of us. I'm sure everyone who interviewed, and even those who didn't, have something great and unique to bring to the table. I think each candidate would make a great addition to this body. And it was great to hear the responses to all of the, from all of the different applicants. I was impressed by a lot of Nancy's responses. I have experience with Cliff, but it's always great hearing him talk. And really, Roger and Edward, it was really both through your applications and through your answers, great to get to know you guys that way. It's a really tough decision. Really tough. So for me, what it comes down to is who is the most able to come in and hit the ground running. This is a very nuanced type of work that we do here. Sure. And while each candidate brought quality experience to this process, as I mentioned earlier, it's about work. And in my personal experience, I'll just say, people who I've had the opportunity to work with, I have had the opportunity to either work with or around two of the applicants, and I think there are two really exemplary public servants that we have to consider, one of them being Cliff Waldeck, and Larry Chu was high on my list just because I've worked with him on a number of things. I'm hearing that there may not be, the preference to vote for a candidate who's not here. And if that tends to be the way it goes, you know, I would kind of offer up the rankings or my top three, the ones that I were, you know, of the applicants here tonight that were.
And we'll cover that in a moment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. Then I'll just stop there. But that's kind of what I have to say about it.
So I'm going to look to Mala and Jason to give us some counsel. I respect, you know, Dennis and Eric, your views about, you know, not voting for somebody who's not here. I further, sorry, everybody got to wait. I further, you know, think that it's reasonable to hold this over for another month of the meeting. There's nothing that's critical that's going to require, you know, participation of the new person between now and that period. Procedurally, what I'd just like to know is, you know, do the 4 candidates who are here tonight need to come back again, or can we accept what they've said? And hopefully we've all made some notes about that. And so when we come back next time, we ask Vita and Larry to come. If either of them or both aren't here, then we don't consider them any further, but they have to come to the next meeting. They can be asked the same questions, and we could then after that take a vote. So is that an appropriate process to use?
That is an appropriate process to use. I don't mean to cut off Mala there, but I believe that is appropriate process. The one thing to keep in mind is if you don't invite, if these 4 folks don't come back to the next meeting and a new question pops in your head, you cannot ask that question at the next meeting. So you would be locking yourselves into, here are the 4 questions that you are asking, and that's all that you're asking them. Nothing further, no real follow-ups or any of that type of stuff. I do want to, I know Commissioner Rodoni had made a comment about reopening this process up. You do have the ability to reopen this process or to simply continue the item. And there is a big difference there to me as to what work I do between now and the next meeting. So I would like very clarity as to, are we reopening or simply continuing the item?
I think we're just continuing the item.
Okay.
You know, not reopening it. Steve?
Yeah, I just want to put out for the record that it initially felt weird to me to be continuing this item when we had 4 candidates that came here tonight. But I think when you consider, and you know, Larry is coming out of a precaution to everybody in the room here tonight, and Vita, it sounds like, had a last-minute family emergency. That's the only reason why I am considering continuing the item, and I think the item should be continued. I don't think we should reopen it. We have people before us here that have applied. I initially didn't feel good about continuing it, but then again, remembering the reasons, particularly for, you know, both of them, I think Barbara brought up a really good point about, you know, if we were able to accommodate hybrid, then they probably would be here. So to that end, I would agree with continuing it if that's what the majority of the board wants to do.
Okay. Eric?
Just one question and one comment. So understanding we were appointing for the regular member and the alternate, and Rick, I know you pulled your name out of the running for regular. Are you still interested in alternate? No. No, okay. So we will be appointing for both a regular and an alternate.
Correct. Out of 6 candidates, the 4 who are here, Larry Chu and Vita Flores.
Okay. And then the one other thing that I would just as a general comment, as this is a public member, you know, I know that we have 2 city and town representatives already on the board. I also previously represented a city or a town. I've known Larry Chu for a long time, and both Cliff. I think both of them would be great additions to the board. This is not definitive, but I do worry about if we're appointing a previously elected city or town to the board. Yes, they're a public member, but that would give for a majority of this commission from previous city or town electeds. It doesn't sway me one way or the other, but it was just an observation I wanted to point out.
Fair thing to note. Dennis?
And I would just add, along the same lines, is all things being equal, we have great candidates. All the candidates sound like they're going to be very good candidates. 2 that we haven't even spoken to, I know will score very highly when it comes to answering questions. I look very much then at geographical balance throughout the county. how this commission is balanced. And right now, we're losing two people from San Rafael, Richard and Larry. And there's really no one from San Rafael. Craig is North San Rafael. So for me, I again would look, probably all things being equal, who brings the geographical balance to this commission, which is really important. And the way I rate it is Novato and West Marin and San Rafael actually would be the ones least represented in this commission, given the changes that are coming. So again, not following what Eric is saying, I'm not voting tonight, but that's where my thinking goes, all things being equal, so.
All good comments. Any other comments? Okay, then if there are no objections, I move that we suspend this until the next meeting, to hold it over to the next meeting.
Do you need a motion to
Continue the item to
continue?
the next meeting.
Continue it to the next meeting in
I'll make a
June.
motion to continue till June meeting.
And again, to fill out before we go to motion, whatever, and that the four of you can either come and sit as observers, but you won't be provided a chance to speak again. You've had your opportunities tonight. We've all taken notes about that. The two people who are missing will be offered a chance to come and speak. And if they can't come next month, then I would say that it would essentially be a withdrawal because we have to move on. Okay, so that's under those terms. Edward, do you have a question?
Yes, if this is recorded, can we utilize the recording instead of coming back?
Well, you don't need to come back.
You won't be
Okay, I mean,
asked,
Yeah,
you
you're not
won't
going to be able to speak if you come back anyway.
Okay, well, just,
Yeah.
we're not going to make you repeat this opportunity to
Right.
answer the questions. We took notes.
So, yeah, so
Okay.
given those parameters, do I have a motion to continue this to
I made the
next month?
motion.
The
To
motion,
June.
second? Okay, second, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Any nays? No nays, no abstentions.
Just some semi-housekeeping related to this matter. Until a new commissioner is appointed, Commissioner Savell, you get to keep that seat. Are you going to be back in June or not? Or if it's something, you don't need to give me an answer tonight, but just so you're aware, you get a. Okay. You are allowed, because without you, there is no public representative on this board. So I will yield to the commission if they want you to attend or not. But until that, okay. I'm just letting you know that you have the right to attend until appointments are made.
Yeah, I would only say it's not a matter of the right, but if the seat is going to be empty, I know that's not in the best interest of this commission, I'd be glad to do that.
Okay.
Thank you. And I want to thank all of you who came, and I'm sure we all read your applications, but it really helped to hear from all of you, and it's been a pleasure, and I hope we'll make a decision in June. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
your qualifications scared the hell out of me.
Okay.
Can we stay for the rest of the meeting? Okay, good. Okay, give me a broom, Leslie. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so that takes us to item number 8.
Yeah, item
Jason,
number
Jared?
8 is a review and approval of the work plan for fiscal year 23-24. As the committee chair, Commissioner Rodoni, if you'd like to make any comments first, I always yield to you.
No, we had a chance to review the work plan with the budget and defer to Jason, so.
Thank you. You have in front of you a work plan. I'm not going to go through every item on there. There's one item that Commissioner Kohler realized we had put the wrong status on. The next round of MSRs won't be started until we get to the last one, which is the Central Marin Sewers. I think I put on there that it'll start after a different one. So we'll correct that in the work plan. Everything else, the only item that is really on there that I think there should be open for a question and maybe discussion, any of the items are, but that staff wants to have a discussion about is, should we continue to work on the fire study and potentially do a police study after we're done with that? Right now, being low staffed, we're not going to be able to get to that until we hire a new staff person. And even then, it'll take some time before we get a new staff person trained up to the level where we can probably get working on that again. So at the very least, that's going to be delayed for a while. But the question comes is, do we really need to do that study? I think a lot of fire agencies at this point are having some of the same discussions that we were planning to do in that study. So the question is, are we being redundant or helpful at the end of the day? I'm not convinced that we're being helpful. We're probably being more redundant, but that's just my personal opinion on the matter. That's my staff report.
So, any comments or questions from the commission?
Is it okay to make a comment?
Sure.
Or should we wait
Make a
for?
comment.
Dennis, I think you were ahead of me.
That's okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think the countywide fire study and the countywide police study would be nice if we had nothing else to do. And I think that was something that the prior chair had a big interest in. But to me, that sounds more like the kinds of work that the grand jury does. And I see that, you know, we already see with county fire, even with Ross Valley Fire, we're looking at shared services and potentially a change in the governance model. I think there's movement there, and I'm not sure that LAFCo really adds, and I think it would be quite a bit of work to do when you have kind of a full plate of work to do. So it would be more a nice to have, but I'm not sure that I would support continuing.
Thank you, Chair. Jason, in reviewing the work plan after we met, I realized that I probably should have asked for something else from you, and maybe you could add it in the future. It'd be helpful under responsible for the work that actually you list if it's you or Jaren or who it's going to be or a combination, and then maybe adding a column there about how much work it might involve, a guesstimate of how much time, because none of these do we have an idea of how much time it would be for any of these particular items. So I know that's a little more work and not asking for it tonight, but maybe in the future you could add a category, you know, identify which staff would be working on it. Would it be Jaren only, or would it be Jaren and you, and then maybe Jaren and you on everything? And that's okay. And then also how much of your time you think you might, of the next budget year, you might have to work on that, just to get an idea.
No, those are excellent ideas. Actually, to be fair, I was looking at taking that staff item off of the list. That was originally on there because when I first started, several of the commissioners were very active in helping us get this organization redone, and so I was putting on which commissioners were helping us. At this point, yeah, it's pretty much Jaren and me, and when we get a clerk, so I was actually thinking of removing that completely, but I can separate it out that way. As far as the time spent, that's also a good idea. There's going to be some of them that it's really like very. It's not dependent on us. It's dependent on how much others are willing to help us with. Like the one that I'm working on with the Dillon Beach, I really have no idea how much time that's going to be. But I can try and put for the bigger picture items how much time it's going to take to do. Some of them will just be unknowns, but I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I was thinking of like 8 hours of your time the next budget year or something. You were thinking it might be, just ideas like that.
Yeah, so Jason, one of the things you mentioned is we have a unique situation here in Marin LAFCo where staff may be working for another LAFCo. So I think that's important to show the Santa Cruz work, if that's known within the work plan for the next year.
That's really not known. It's really something last minute comes up and they need someone, and same thing with us. So that's really a complete unknown, and we have yet to have any requests go back and forth.
Okay, yeah, it kind of gets to Dennis' point, which I agree is kind of staff, what's in their bandwidth for that year, and as you mentioned, what comes up, and I imagine they'll have some urgency when it does come up. Then one of the other things is you did very successful work on Murray Park, so appreciate that consolidation. San Quentin Village is going to be much more difficult, and I see it's tracking. That's good, and just want to make sure that kind of keeps pushing forward. I think that's important for Murray.
It's tracking, but it's tracking to nowhere right now. The sanitary districts have a problem with permitting issues that the county requires for its roads, and they've been trying to work through it. I hear every once in a while that there's a step forward, and then later we'll hear there's 2 steps back, and so that until that gets resolved, I don't see San Quentin Village actually moving forward. When it does, we have a great model to use. We have the Murray Park one. It's the exact same issue, exact same thing. It's just a matter of getting past this sewer issue, or it's sewer and water. It's all utilities really. So I don't really see that going anywhere, but when it does, it will go very quickly.
So one of the things that just immediately prior to this, I had our Las Colinas Valley Sanitary District Board meeting, and there was discussion on the flood zones, flood zone 7 in particular. And I think as we left it with flood zone 6 is the county supervisor was going to help push this and shift it over to the San Rafael. And it kind of gets back to our MSRs and having a punch list or action item. So when new LAFCo members pick that up or public, they could see what needs to happen from one transition to the next. It'd be good to see in the work plan how these things are being effectuated. So there's some follow-up on prior work and making sure that it's taken all the way through the completion.
Yeah, I mean, some of the, like that, the flood zone that you mentioned is actually an interesting one. We have no actual control over the flood zones. That's purely the flood district has control over its own boundaries, and we will offer assistance when we need to. I have not heard anything on that particular flood zone in quite some time as far as them trying to consolidate and get it over to San Rafael. And so this becomes one of those interesting things. This is where, while I want to give you, like, here's how many hours it would take, I really don't know, because if they don't call me up and ask me to help them, it's 0. If they call me up and say, hey, Jason, we really could use your help, I'm going to look at my overall workload, because that's technically outside of LAFCO jurisdiction to be dealing with. But I'm happy to lend a hand wherever I can. So that's where I'm trying to, in my head, debate, like, how do I put down number of hours? Because it's really, those are the types of things that I could be doing 0 hours for 12 months, and then all of a sudden I put in 30 hours in 1 month just because something on it actually was moving and I saw an opportunity and I took it.
So Jason, like the incorporation effort with Marin City, I think that would be kind of the one-off ones that kind of land on us too. Are you feeling that there's enough capacity within the current work plan for these things as they kind of helicopter in and there's demands on staff?
We've been able to handle the flow up to this point. I'm not going to say that like, sometimes things might drop back on my radar or drop off my radar a little bit because no one else is working on it. And sometimes if I don't bug somebody, nothing will get worked on it. Other times they just, they will move on their own, and I'm just like there to help push it along. So it's really a issue by issue thing. And if I get busy on something else, I just let something else slide for a little bit. And then when I get a chance, I call them back up and say, hey, what's going on with this, and get it moving again.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Yes, Barbara.
Sorry. So Ross Valley Fire is moving forward with the shared services agreement with Central Marin Fire to have Reuben Martin be the fire chief, and then they want to move into another governance model, and Steve Berto sits on that fire board.
We're only in discussions at this point.
I know, but that's July 1. Things have to be in place. So just like what you did with Mill Valley and Southern Marin Fire, and that one was excellent, but it did take a number of years. I think once they get that shared services agreement in place, it may be an opportune time to just check in and say, do you need any involvement from LAFCO at that time?
Yeah.
Because
Yes,
sooner rather than later, so we're not in a 9-year process.
Yeah, they did a 9-year process because that's what they wanted to do. That wasn't because it took a long time to do. They wanted to date for a while, make sure everything worked, and it was actually a very good model. They wanted to make sure everything worked, and then once they realized it worked, it took them 2 years to go through the process of actually consolidating, and that's an expected thing to occur because you had 2 agencies that were in different retirement systems. You had 2 agencies with different contracts with the union. So there were a lot of big ticket items that needed to be worked through. And that will be the same thing if that occurs. My one comment on Ross Valley currently is I have been giving a warning to folks. Yes, you can do some stuff without LAFCO approval, but there is a line that you can't go across. If all they're doing is replacing Jason Weber with the fire chief for Central Marin, that's fine. But I've heard rumors about possibly sharing staff between the fire departments. If that occurs, LAFCO has to be involved in that discussion. And so I want to be very cautious, and I've been trying to get my way into that discussion to make sure that if they go down that path, I am in the room. I have yet to be invited into that room, however.
Yeah, let's talk about that
Yeah,
offline.
I was going to say, we're getting into deep things here.
Seriously, I'm very uncomfortable with how this, that's down the road, that'll play out. That's not for now.
The only item that's on the agenda for tonight is to consider what the projects are that are on the list.
Yep.
And granted, I hear your comments about the fire district. Right now, that's a as time allows kind of thing. It's not a high priority kind of item. So I think, what we should do is kind of accept the proposed list of things. Jason, in the meantime, you can consider whether we want to drop off the fire district item that Barbara mentioned, or whether it needs to stay on there. But for now, it's just kind of a question of, do we accept the list and schedule of things that you presented?
I would say whether we keep the fire study and police study on is really a commission decision, not staff. So I would want the commission to make that decision, not staff on that.
I'm still going to hold that over and not make a decision on it tonight.
Okay.
Okay. So, any other questions or comments about it?
Lou, just going to follow up on your comments. I think just like prioritization, which we've done in the past, is our high, low, medium priorities. So if there's a feeling that the fire and police studies are a lower priority,
And that's what I want to
I'm
understand
totally
before we
fine with
continue,
that
yeah.
and just continue to carry it, but
Yep.
we agree with that.
That's my thought. Any other comments? Okay, Jason, next item.
Are you taking public comment and are you approving the work plan?
Oh, that's right, we need to approve it, okay. Edward, do you have any comments?
No, but it's interesting.
Okay, then let's bring it back to the commission again. So, do I hear a motion to approve the presented proposed work plan?
So moved.
Second.
Motion, second. Dennis, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nays? The ayes have it, unanimous. Jason, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 9, approval of extension of office lease to 1401 Los Gatos Drive, Suite 220, which is our current location. Prior to me being here, we had an office lease that we were in for our current office that is about to expire at the end of May. So I'm bringing to you today an extension of our office lease. I did, when I first realized what was going on, I went out and did a little bit of research. What is current office space like? I felt like, hey, with all, with COVID and all these businesses closing, there's probably some really cheap deals out there. Turns out, no, there's not. Everyone is keeping their prices exactly as they were pre-COVID, and in some cases rising them because of inflation. So, based on that, I found out what the price per square foot was for similar office space. I then went to our building management company and said, hey, what would you offer us if we stayed in our current spot? They quickly, semi-quickly, I should say, got back to us on general pricing and made us 2 offers. One was for a 3-year lease, which sees a 4% increase every year. The other was for a 5-year lease. I was able to negotiate with them on the 5-year lease that we would get. Our current lease goes until May 31st. Our fiscal year goes until June 30th. So they are going to give us June for free for rent if we do a 5-year lease. Plus, they are only going to increase our rent 16 cents a month for the first year of that 5-year lease. And they're doing 16 cents because they wanted to round it off and make everything even dollar amounts. That's why they went to 16 cents more. After that, you see a 4% increase occur. I think we got when I was comparing it to, what was available out there elsewhere, by the time we get to the end of our 5-year lease, we're paying probably similar prices to what we can get today if we moved. So I think we have a very good deal for our office. I mean, I will say I'm not always happy with the office because it's zero walkability. I can't go in. If I need to leave, I need to get in my car to drive anywhere. I tend to go out for lunch. It would have been nice to have a lunch location near me. But at the end of the day, based on the price, I cannot argue with the lease agreement that they're giving us. And I personally think that the 5-year lease option is our best option. It will save us money in our budget for next year. It saves us money this year since we won't have to pay a month's lease. In addition, I've also asked them, while the agreement that you have in the packet ends May 31st, they've agreed to sync all of our all the years. So it starts June 1st, so we're delaying by 1 month all of our increases that if you were just to do in a straight extension now, and it ends on it starts July 1st, ends on June 30th. So it will perfectly fit our fiscal year, which makes budgeting a lot easier for us, makes everything much better well known. And this will actually be, I think, the last agreement that we have that it does not sync to the fiscal year. All the agreements when I first started were just whenever they were signed. I've been able to get all of our agreements to sync to the fiscal year, which makes budgeting so much simpler and easier in the long run. So my recommendation is do the 61-month extension of our current lease. You would be authorizing me to sign that, and we just stay where we're at for the next 5 years.
Okay. So I'll just start off by saying I support your idea, and I really do it because having that 5-year period that we know what's going to be happening, allows us to have some stability. You know, those of you who've been associated with LAFCo for more than the last few years may remember that we had different executive officers, we had different locations, and I think every time you make a change of that type, it tends to affect the operation overall. So I support your idea of going with the 5-year lease, and so I'd like to hear what my colleagues have to say. Greg?
Yeah, so Carla Condon from Corte Madera was very instrumental in helping get the new lease and the design and the boardroom there. So I want to reflect back and thank Carla. She really did help our executive officer at the time. So Jason, everything you presented seems reasonable. I have a couple of questions. One, we've had a piece of paper on the door since we moved in, like it's some sort of temporary facility. With this, long-term lease, can we at least get a professional sign on the door?
Commissioner, we have always had a sign outside of our door that is professionally done by the building. We have had a personal sign put up on the inside of our door when we used to keep the door open, so people would try and recognize that we were LAFCo and not some other office. That actually, since we've never opened the door since COVID, that sign is not seen by the public anymore.
Yeah, but we're reopening, and when I walk up, I see that, and I imagine the public sees that too.
As I said, we've always had a professional sign sitting outside our door. That was an additional sign to try and stop people from coming into our office who are looking for the law office down the hallway.
Okay, it might be a simple request, and it'd make it look a lot better. Second request is, are you aware of any other LAFCOs that actually own their own building? And I imagine that might be a bridge too far with us here in Marin, but we could, potentially look at shared space with other public agencies looking to purchase and stabilize.
There is one LAFCO that owns their own building. It's down in Southern California. I think one of those owns their own spot. I had thought about at one point maybe doing that, but real estate is so expensive here that I don't know how we could ever afford it and keep our dues to our members at a reasonable rate. I was also thinking about, is there, an agency that potentially has shared services? I never really had a chance to follow up on that deeply enough. There would be some concerns if we went into a fellow agency's building of the view, at least from the public, are we truly independent of that agency? Can we review them correctly if we're using their office space? I think that's one of the reasons why we moved to the spot we did, was to make sure we had that independence there.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for your work on it.
Eric?
Just a quick question, trying to understand exactly when the lease would begin and end, because the staff report had mentioned a 61-month or a 37-month, but the lease terms just seemed like a standard 36 or 60. Could you help me understand the discrepancy?
Yeah, as I mentioned in the presentation, I got the building management company to agree to extend that by 1 month. And so what you see in there is, if you look at the 5-year one, because that's the one I know better and that's the one I'm recommending, you see that we continue to keep our June 1st to May 31st extensions in there. That will change. We will get June of this year for free, and then our new yearly increases will start on July 1st and go to June 30th.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Yeah, and there will be no increase for next year other than that 16 cents. But after that, we will then have a 4% increase every year thereafter, or about 4%. It's averaged out.
Thank you. Makes perfect sense.
Dennis?
Just one quick question, Jason. With the 60-month term lease, is there any built-in exits for either one of us, should we need them?
Their agreements, I don't think, have exits. I would have to look at the old lease itself. I don't have that in front of me, but I don't recall ever seeing an exit agreement in there. It's more, we're stuck there for 5 years, and yes, that can be scary, but at the same point in time, are we going to find something cheaper and move somewhere else? Probably not likely in the next 5 years, either which way.
Okay. Yeah, since we're going to a 5-year lease, I was thinking more of some perhaps transition to a situation where the county would again take over LAFCO. You never know what the future would bring. Rather than being independent, be a dependent LAFCO or something like that, because we're so small that we might have to at some point.
I hear your sentiment. I will say, at least from my observations, the county has been trying to get rid of us every step of the way. So if they're looking to reverse course, I would love to have a discussion, but I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. So.
And I'm thinking some other outside force that might force to change. If you move on to a better job and we have no one to staff it, that we might have to do a change. That's what I'm thinking more of, yeah.
Yeah, Steve?
Yeah, I support the 5-year lease. As for my colleagues' questions about the signage, I think I have a happy bridge. I have these adhesive frames that will go around any printed paper that will make it look much like super nice. It's just an adhesive frame that goes around it, and I use them all the time to make pieces of paper look like works of art. So I'm happy to share one with you, Jason.
Okay. Rick, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Jason, on a day-to-day basis, what are operations like there? The facilities, everything that you need, whether it's internet, and do you know how old the building is?
If I remember correctly, it was built in either the 80s or 90s, and they keep the place pretty well maintained. When I first got there, they were doing some fixing of the roof, which was a little annoying, and then but 3 years ago, they did the stucco repair, which was, while it was going on, it was annoying. But other than that, it's been, they do a good job of keeping the place. Whenever there's been a big rain, you'll see the property manager actually walking around just to double check.
Okay.
We're on the top floor, so they will come into our office and just double check to make sure there's no leaks in the roof. So they do a very good job of maintaining the building. The building property manager is very friendly. We're theoretically supposed to turn in our rent on the first day. She understands that, I might not be in the office on the first day of the month. And if whatever the first day of the month I'm in the office, she accepts the check and it has no problem with it. So very friendly, very easy to work with. I mean, like I said, the only issue I have with it is its physical location. But other than that, it's a great location.
Well, I heard that, but so the facilities are adequate for you?
Yes.
Whether it's power,
Oh, yeah.
internet?
All that stuff has always been fine.
Okay.
And
And
we're because of where we're located, this building protects our grid, our part of the grid, because the sheriff's department's in this building.
Okay.
We're on the same line as them, so when power needs to go out when they've done those brownouts and stuff, we don't have that same issue because the sheriff's department protects us.
Okay. Last question, though. You've been there long enough. Have you had any experience, or can you report on when facilities do break? Are they responsive? Do they get to it and fix it in a time?
Anytime we report a problem, it gets fixed relatively quickly.
In a timely manner,
Yeah.
and you're satisfied?
Oh, yeah, very
Thank
satisfied.
You. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Any other comments? Okay. Any questions from the public?
No, it's exciting.
Let's bring it back then. Do I hear a motion to approve the lease extension as described in the board packet by Jason?
I'll move the item.
Motion, second?
I'll second.
Second from Barbara. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, unanimous. Okay, Jason, next item.
Next item is our final business item of the night. It's the to accept and file our audit for fiscal year 2021, 2022, and to authorize us to use the same auditing firm for our upcoming fiscal year 2022, 2023, which is not yet expired, but I figured since we're just dealing with this, why not deal with it all now? So when we're ready to do that audit, I don't have to come back to you and ask you for approvals to use that same firm. In the audit itself, you will see that we get a pretty good bill of clean health there. We're still in the late stages of transition from an old auditing firm that did things much differently. The only thing that they had issues with was when we submitted our long-term compensation for like vacation and sick. We didn't quite do that calculation correctly, and they called us on it. Everything else in the audit looked fine. We improved from last year. Last year they had several things with our closing. This year they only had one, which was that one item I just mentioned. So we continue to go in a very positive direction. I want to thank our bookkeeper, Elisa, who helps with a lot of the work around that audit. And so in front of you is that. If you have any questions, happy to answer them. Otherwise, I would just ask that you accept and file and approve next year's audit with them.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the commission?
Just, sorry?
Sorry, quick.
Yeah, Jason, they're out of Irvine. I know we talked about this before. They're kind of LAFCO specific. They work with other LAFCOs, so
they're not LAFCO specific, but they do work with several other LAFCOs. There was actually the year prior to us starting with them, I think it was 5 or 6 Southern California LAFCOs all went in an RFP together and picked them when they happened to be the year before us when we needed to switch. So I went and said, hey, we piggybacked on their RFP and got a really good rate for our audit, and we continue to have a good rate for our audit.
It's nice to solicit local firms, keep businesses here, and My question is really their distance in Irvine. Has that posed any problems? But
Has the only issue that is different being long distance from them being here is a local firm will show up into your office and actually like look through your files. What they do is they send me a list of here are the 20 receipts we want to look at for the year. You know, like they will send me a list of the receipts and things that they want to look at. I just have to scan them and send them those bills, and they're fine to go. So that's the only thing. While I agree with you, local is nice. I think in this case we have an auditing firm that does extremely good work. The previous firm was local, and we were having quite a bit of issues with them not following through on things and not doing stuff correctly, in my mind, to make things as quick as possible. We actually were a year behind at one point because they were so slow in the process. So Davis Farr got us caught up, and we're now on correct track to be where we need to be with our audits.
great, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Any comments or questions from the public?
No?
Let's bring it back to the board then. Do I hear a motion to accept and approve the audit as presented by Jason?
So moved?
Second.
You're moving staff recommendation?
Yes, I would move staff's recommendation.
Yes. Yes, right.
A
Do I hear a
second. Yeah.
Steve, second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? Okay.
All right.
Done.
Executive officer's report, as I always do, I will speed run through these. You will tell me when to stop if you want to ask me a question on any of them. Budget update in front of you. You have a budget update. We continue to remain under budget, which is always good. There are a few line items that we are over budget on, as they are explained in the budget packet. You can read what those are. I think that we are pretty much overall in good shape. The ones that we're over budget on, just slightly over budget. It's not that big, and our overall budget is under, so we are fine on that front. Current and pending proposals, you saw 2 applications tonight. We miraculously, within a week of each other, had 2 new applications come in that we already know about for our June meeting. Those are in the packet. One of them is a Mill Valley County issue. The other is up in Novato. And both of those are going through their process right now of review, and we will have them ready for you, assuming nothing comes back in the review as being problematic for you at the June meeting. Then we come on to I just want to give a general update on open commission seats. Clearly, tonight we did not fill the 2 public seats. We will continue that. The special districts have finished their process for who's going to be serving for the next 4 years. Lou will be maintaining his seat, and Todd had decided that he wanted to leave, so we will be getting Catherine Hilliard, who is with the Southern Marin Fire Protection District, which is a little exciting for me because we've had 3 sewer agencies represented on here for a while. It's nice to have a non-sewer agency also represented, and since we do so much work and discussion on fire these days, it's good to have a fire representative on this board. I think that'll be helpful and positive for us in the end of the day. So those are the updates for our open seats. Once that is completed, we will be, especially now that we know that Commissioner Savell has withdrawn his name, since last December, we will have 7 of the 11 members be new members. I will probably come back to you at the next meeting with a discussion about perhaps doing a workshop. I know some of you that have been around a while may not be fans of workshops, but it might be good to have some sort of workshop for our newer members. I do 101s, but it's still, with so much new stuff, it might be good for us to have a discussion later, like end of this year, beginning of next year type time frame. And I'll come back in June with you to have that discussion. The final official item on the EO report is Marin LAFCo update. We have a staff workshop coming up at the end of April. I will be going to that staff workshop. Jaren's going to stay behind and do some stuff here at the office to keep us going. At that staff workshop, I will actually be the moderator for the executive officer roundtable. I'm also going to be moderating a roundtable for independent LAFCOs so we can have a discussion, rack our heads together, figure out what's best practices are, see if there's better ways for us to work with each other. Very excited about both of those roundtables occurring, and they asked me to moderate both of them. So I look forward to doing that. It's in Murphy, California, which, for those that don't know where Murphy is between Sacramento and Yosemite. So it's a nice little area. After the work, that is the end of the Marin LAFCo part, but after the workshop, I'm actually going to continue to head east on vacation. So as soon as the workshop is done, I'll be heading out the door and heading to Utah for a couple of weeks. So you all get Jaren for the end of April, beginning of May timeframe, first couple of weeks of May. So as I always like to say when I go on vacation, any issues you want fixed, that's the perfect time to come to LAFCo and ask him to be fixed. He'll take care of it for you.
I got a big rubber stamp.
Yeah, so feel free to do that. Also, Jaron will be taking some time off later this month as well, so seems like a good time for us to be, both of us haven't had vacations in a while, so this seemed to be a good time to transition with the end of the Golden Gate MSR occurring. As we're getting ramped up to the next one, it seemed like a good time for us to recharge our batteries. Did you have a question, Commissioner Murray?
Yeah, just, can you update us on the junior analyst position and staffing up with that?
Yeah, we have not officially put that out for bid yet, or out for interviews, out for whatever you call it that you put out the job stuff for. I purposely am being a little slow in that, only because in about 2 or 3 weeks, students start looking for jobs, and I wanted to have our job fresh on that list when students are looking for work that are graduating from college. So I purposely did not put anything out, but I will be putting something out shortly to time well. So we will hopefully have, like we did when we hired Olivia, had two very strong pools of candidates, where we had some that had a lot of clerking experience and some that were fresh out of college. And my goal is to try and see if we can't repeat that again this time around. The job market is starting to get a little bit better. That was the other reason why I've been delaying it. The other LAFCos have been putting stuff out there, and beginning of the year they were not getting candidates. That seems to have been loosening up a little bit now. So my hope is that we will start to get good candidates if we just hold off a little bit, which is putting a little pressure on Jaron and myself, but we've both talked about it and felt that that was the right path to take. Just some house cleaning things for this meeting. All of you, and I've already gotten one of them, but all of you in front of you should have your stipend form. Now that we're back in person, I don't have to send out for e-signature. You can fill it out tonight and give it to me before you leave. And next week I will be able to cut you checks and get them to you. So please fill out your stipend forms and return them to me before you leave. Also, just as a reminder to our chair and legal counsel, we have all of our resolutions ready to be signed. So before you leave tonight, please sign those once again, much quicker and easier than having to send out a bunch of Adobe signature stuff. It's just so much easier to sign tonight. So please do that. And on that note, that is the end of my executive officer's report.
Thank you, Jason. Any final questions, comments about Jason's report?
Just say one thing.
I'm sorry?
Just one thing.
Sure, Barbara.
I don't know if we should wait till the end of the meeting. That may be better. I just wanted to also thank Todd for his service, and I think when he has spoken, he's really given some sage comments and really good suggestions. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. And we'll miss you.
Yeah, and just so we will at our next meeting. I wasn't sure when we put the agenda out if the special districts would complete their process by June. That's why we didn't put something on there thanking him tonight. We will at our next meeting have a formal, do our formal resolution and stuff.
And you can always come back and sit in the audience.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Anytime you want. Okay. Okay, so we're done with the official agenda then?
No, you are done with the executive officer's report. You now have closed session.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
That's still
So
part of the official
we're
agenda.
now going to adjourn to go to closed session, right?
Chair,
Could we
Sorry?
take a break?
you want to let,
Hang on a second.
have commissioner announcements and requests while the public is present, rather than have to wait till we come out of closed session?
I'm sorry, what was that, Dennis? I didn't hear you.
Commissioner announcements and requests that after closed session.
Oh,
I think that's a good suggestion.
Out of the way.
sure, if you want to. I'm okay with that.
Thank you. I think Richard has something.
My turn?
Sure.
I have to laugh too, because up till the very end, including the public members now being split, so now we have to carry over. I found myself in a really unusual circumstance, so now I'm going to have to split my statement between tonight and part two the next time. I mean, this just keeps going. And Molly, you might follow me through, but when I first was appointed, I researched the records and found the Attorney General's opinion on the role of LAFCo alternate members in closed sessions. And Molly explained that Marin LAFCo adopted a different policy. In Sonoma County, they stay with the Attorney General's opinion. Here, we do something different. And the role of an alternate is not only to replace a regular member, but also attend and participate in the entire process, stay informed, and be fully prepared to vote on current matters before the commission, including closed sessions. Looking back, I went through my records. I had an 84% attendance record. I worked with Larry. I always ensured that there was going to be a public member here, no matter what. It's important to me. I didn't intend to reapply. Then Larry resigned. And it was a dilemma. And the way I saw it, if I didn't reapply, there could be an interruption in the continuity of a fully informed public member on matters that were underway in process. 2, I couldn't be sure of how many applications would be submitted or how qualified the applicants would be. There's just no way to know. So I submitted my application as a backup position. I reviewed all the back records and confirmed with Mala and Jason that as of tonight, Marin LAFCo is current. There are no substantial pending matters left. We're current. The forecasted future work is still being processed and not under consideration by the commission at this time. The commission received 7 other applications of talented, knowledgeable, and experienced people, all who are qualified and more than suitable to replace me, and would be starting their public member positions on new matters, fresh. So to me, that brings it full circle. This would be the time for me to, and that's, I didn't want to see, why was I submitting it and withdraw? It was a moving target. Then Larry's, and then these guys, now I got to come back in June, and it's going to end, but I wanted to give you some explanation for that.
Well, I appreciate that.
And
Sure we
part
will.
B, when I leave next time, I'll do part B. Thank you for that.
So any other commission announcements? Okay, so
Could we take a quick break?
we are going to.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
So now we can adjourn open session and go adjourn to closed session, correct?
You're not adjourning, you're
Recessing.
recessing.
Recessing, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And you could also ask if the member of the public has any comments on the closed session, and then that way, if the member of the
Do
public
you have any
wants
comments,
to
Edward?
leave.
No, just a great meeting, enjoying it, it's great.
Thank you. Okay, so with that in mind, Jason, if you excuse yourself, Jaron, if you'd excuse yourself, we are going to take a 5-minute break. Okay. So we could kind of change horses and whatever, and we'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Back in closed session, excuse me, back in open session. There was nothing to report out of closed session, and the items that were on the agenda to discuss in closed session will be held over for another month, another meeting.
Can I ask some questions on that?
As long as they're minimal.
I will keep them minimal. In order for me to do a final budget, will I know what salaries are going to be before the next meeting?
Based on our discussion, probably not.
Okay, that's going to be very problematic for me to get you a good final budget, just so you're aware.
Then we'll have to accept that.
Okay.
Anything else? No. Okay. I'm sorry?
Are we done?
We are almost done. Now you're wanting to hurry, huh? Okay. Any other comments or questions from the commission before I ask for a motion to adjourn? No other final comments? Barbara?
Let's adjourn.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Yes. You have a motion?
Yes.
Everyone all in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. 9:35.